Hi, this is Jason with Lily White Water Consulting, and I'm here to demonstrate how to model not only hydraulics but also power and energy that are used to drive the pumping of a hydraulic system, and doing this in a digital twin model by simulating real-time operations. So here we have a simple pump system that is a variable speed pump that essentially matches whatever the demand is. It supplies water on demand. So the demand is this node here. This is a demand node, and this represents some irrigation supply. I'll just call it water demand, and its base demand is 50, and it uses a pattern, an irrigation demand pattern, and we can go look at that. It looks like this. It's just irrigating for 5 hours and turns off. Okay, so that's the pattern. And then when we run this, then we can look at, in real time, we can see the telemetry over here on the right. And then we can also, we can add charts over here. So maybe we want to see something as it's changing over time, like the pump flow. And maybe also the pump power, we could say. And then run this and see how this changes over time. And then we can move this slider and speed this up, and then wait, and you can see the time elapsing up here, and we get to a point eventually where the irrigation ends, and that's how the model works. Okay, but what we want to do is take a closer look. We want to take a closer look at power. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add power. So in this tool now, what you can do is you can add a power supply, and it can either come from the utility grid or you can generate your own power, which is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to generate the power using a diesel generator, and we'll set the efficiency to 30 and set the price to $6 a gallon. And then I'm going to connect the power supply to the pump. And now that that's all set up, now when we run the model, and then I could, well, let's see, I've already got two axes used there, so I'm going to add a sliding chart over here. Let me just kind of make this a little bit shorter. Okay, fit that in there. And then now what we can do is we can look at the amount of power that was generated. And then we could also look at the cumulative energy, or the energy, and run this model. And so we can gather some things from it. We can look at the total system-wide numbers, such as what's the total cost, what is the total amount of fuel that's used. We can get that right here, and get more information about the power. Okay, but what if we want to look at the system and say, well, actually, maybe I want to convert this to solar power. What does that mean we need to do? Well, it could mean, if we were using solar power, that we need to reconfigure our system, because the demand for the water is in the night, during the night. And for solar power, that's only during the day. So we're going to need to add a few things to this. So I'm going to exit this model and go into a new model that is based on, well, it's exactly a copy. And now I'm going to modify the system hydraulically first. So the first thing we want to do is we want to modify this so that we can deliver water reliably, but be pumping the water at a different time. So that's going to require storage. So I'm going to simulate a pond, and we can do that in EPANet with a tank. So this is EPANet running under the hood here. So I'm going to just represent this as a very large tank on a hill. So I'll put it at 200 feet. This is up higher, and we'll just make this 1,000. So a big model. We're modeling. We care about the volume in here, but we could change. We could add. We could model it like a pond. But I'm just going to call this. I'm just going to call this a high pond. Okay. All right. So you might know that in EPANet you can actually represent different kinds of geometries besides a cylinder. But anyway, this is what we have right now. And so now I need to reconfigure it hydraulically. So I'm going to delete this pipe, And I'll just go ahead and add the pipe there, make this the same length, 5,000 feet, and then connect that pipe there. And okay, so now we have a pipe up where we have a tank on a hill that represents our pond that we're going to pump to. So instead of just meeting the demand, instead of just pumping on demand with a variable speed pump, I'm going to change this to a constant speed pump, and it will flow. It'll have a lower flow rate because we're going to try to be pumping water to this pond over a longer period of time, allowing us to conserve the peak amount of energy, or the peak power is what we're trying to reduce, and that'll make it more efficient for us. So now I'm going to add a new power supply, and this one I'll call it solar power, or I'll call it a solar. We'll call it a solar grid, and I think we can set this to 35% efficient. And then what we're also going to need is a battery, and now I'm going to connect them all up. And the battery, let's say that this has a capacity of 10 kilowatt hours, and then the charge and discharge rate, we'll put them at 25 instead of 50. That 50 is pretty high. So this is just, like I said, this is a small irrigation system. Okay, and then and let's say that by midnight we're able to get it up to 90% charged by midnight is the assumption. And then up here on the tank, let's say that our initial level at midnight is 90% full, and then let's see, I think we have everything. The other thing we want to do is we want to have the pump turn on automatically, but we can see how that works as we go. That's one of the benefits of having this type of tool that lets you kind of play with things as you go and play with real-time operations. So now I'm just going to add a few things here that will give us an idea of what's happening. So I'm going to start with just showing how much the pump is pumping as far as discharge, and then I'm going to also compare that to the outflow just to kind of give us an idea there. And then I also just want to see the battery charge over time. So I'm going to put the battery charge since we have an extra y-axis there. Okay, so the other thing that I had to do with this model, with this tool, is enable climate data. So what it does is it allows you to go to put in the latitude and longitude of your site, and then it will go, you can hit fetch, and it will go and it will get the 7-day forecast of solar radiation, cloud cover, wind, all the things you need to calculate the energy being produced by your solar panels, which is really helpful. And so that's being used there to do that. And also the battery charges at a nonlinear rate, which is more realistic. And okay, so now we have that set up. I'm going to keep this here kind of in the middle to represent, this is pretty close to real time. And we'll go ahead and run. So you see this moon, it says night. If we click on this, we can override the cloud cover if we wanted to see its impact on the solar panels, but mostly just so you can see the climate information over here in the right panel. But we can also click on these other things and see what they're doing. And anyway, so it's just kind of cruising along. We're pumping into this pond at this lower rate than what's being pulled out of the pond. So that means if we turn the speed up, then you're going to see this pond is going to start draining. And the hope here is that we have enough. We're able to pump enough water into this to keep it from draining all the way, and then having a shortage at our demand. So now we're almost to 5 a.m. Once we hit 5 a.m., we stop irrigating. You can see we stopped right here, and our battery, our battery was not charging. You can see it was discharging. Our battery was not charging because it was still dark outside. But once the sun came up, then it was able to start charging. And you can see by the time we ended our simulation, 10 hours later, we weren't able to charge it quite all the way up to 90% again, but we didn't run it for 24 hours. So we could run this for 24 hours to see how that goes. But anyway, if you click on the canvas, then you can see overall stats of the entire system. Now we don't have any costs. We don't have any fuel costs. We're not tapped into the grid, so we don't have any energy costs. One thing about the grid, if we were to well, we'd have to reset the model to add it. But if we added this utility grid and hooked into this, then what that means is that we would have to look at our energy rates, which you can set here, and you can also set up a pattern, because oftentimes the energy prices change at different times. So we could have that incorporated as well to look at different aspects of that kind of power supply. So anyway, this is really useful, I think, for looking at the details of operating, in particular when you're interested in both water and energy. I hope this was useful for you, and if you want to see more, come check out my website at lilywhitewater.com, and I hope you get a chance to also play with this tool that's also on the website. All right, thanks for watching.